Madison Central Plains Weather Center. Today we're going to be doing obviously the winter forecast for this upcoming winter of 2018-2019. Again, it's by me. I'm lead forecaster at the Central Plains Weather Center. It's basically my company. And are you ready for this? Okay, here we go. First slide. We're going to talk about this is what we're talking about this video. Factors this winter. We're going to talk about the ENSO. Is it El Nino? It is El Nino. Another question is it El Nino Madoki? Another thing, PDO, Pacific Decadal Oscillation. We'll talk about that. Teleconnections, PNA, Pacific, North Pacific Oscillation, EPO, AO, NAO. I'll also talk about the QBO. Solar minimum, sunspot cycle is very low right now, leading to a bigger factor in the winter. And also the polar vortex. Will it get disrupted? And if it does, what will it bring to the United States? So, first slide here. Before we start this winter forecast, I want to show you last winter of my accuracy. So this is what happened last winter. We had a warm west, a cold central United States, and above average southeast United States, and then some mixing into below and above normal, especially northeast. And last year I showed that, and basically I nailed it right on. I showed the cold I should have had a little more eastward, but beyond that I think I did pretty good, especially with the warmth here across the southeast, and then the warmth across the west, and then again the warmth across parts of the northeast. This was my winter forecast from last year. Again, it was pretty good. I'll give myself that. Also, the cold did come down here a little more. So I just want to show you my accuracy, show that I can forecast long range. I can forecast long range. Okay, so I'm just showing you my accuracy. So here we go on to the forecast. So again, I want to show you this fall. We've had a record-breaking early snowfall record here across, especially Kansas where I live. We've had the earliest snowfall on record, earliest accumulating snowfall on record. It's pretty insane. We've already had, let's see, if we look at this, there's already been a foot of snow across northwest Kansas, and it's only November right now. It's only November 18th, or today's the 19th, but man, it's just been wild. This fall. We've had some big winter storms already in the Northeast, and also in Illinois and Ohio Valley. Also, we had 3 to 6 inches in Kansas a week ago. So it's been a fast start, especially here in the Central Plains and across much of the coast. Every single state has had snow except for Florida. So it's pretty insane, to be honest. So next slide. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first is the El Nino, and also talk about some key factors of what I see. And this is from a long time. This is from a long time ago. This is from Michael Wilhite. He has pretty good winter forecast he has out. But this basically shows what we are looking at. So the first thing I want to look at, obviously, is right here, is Madoki El Nino. Right now, this is from October. It had a pretty good Madoki central-based El Nino in here, especially the warm waters here in the central basin, and then off near the coast it has some cooler waters. So the factors, basically what we want to see here, this is the first factor you want to see. For cold weather, you want to see a central-based El Nino. If we do go to a full basin-wide El Nino, it's not a big deal. We're still in a good pattern for cold. Second thing we're going to see is cold weather off the coast. This was in October. We'll see next slide. We'll see if this is still there. The big thing we want to see is this: a warm blob near Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska. What this does is it allows a high pressure system. So imagine a high pressure system here. It brings the jet stream. Let's see if I can get this down here. It brings the jet stream. Basically, what it does is it brings the jet stream. You see, you have a high pressure right here, right? You have high pressure, and it brings the jet stream over it and brings it down to the United States if this wants to work. Basically what this does is creates a big time high pressure system here in the Gulf of Alaska, and what it does is increase blocking negative EPO, positive PNA setup, where we can get that cold just to dip down to the United States, especially in the central and eastern United States. And another thing we want to see is a positive IOD. Basically, this keeps the cooler phases of the MJO, which can lead to a colder winter again. Just kind of supporting the idea that if we can keep these cooler MJO phases, especially for the wintertime, we could be dealing with some pretty cold weather, especially if we can get this blocking set up and everything like that. So the current analysis right now is, you can see there's been warming here across the basin, across here near the coast. The warm blob is still there. The cold across Australia, just to the west of Australia, is still there. And yeah, so basically, we compare this here. We have this still here. We have this still here. We still have some warm waters in the central based El Nino area. Could be trying to go full base on why. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. But again, we have key factors here. Again, we have the colder weather here. The colder waters here. The warmer waters here, and then the central based El Nino. And what's the strength of El Nino going to be? Well, based right now, it looks like it's going to be a weak to potentially moderate El Nino. I'm going to go with a weak one right now because I don't really see anything to kind of support a moderate El Nino event. I don't really see it. I do see a weak El Nino. I do think we're going to be El Nino, not neutral, but again, it's going to be a weak central-based El Nino, what I'm looking at right now. And these are all the models. Again, some of them are just trying to go blowtorch with this El Nino. Sorry, it's not going to happen. I think it's still having effects from the El Nino in 2015-16, where it was the strongest record ever. It's not going to be like that this year. It's definitely going to be a weak El Nino. And if anything, it's going to be, if anything, it could go moderate, but I do think we will stick in the weak El Nino stages. And what that does is it increases the colder risk. And if we have a central-based El Nino like this, like we're experiencing right now, it also could lead to the colder risk, especially here as you head through winter time. So basically, we're going to talk about, first thing is teleconnections, right? The PNA, the EPO, and what do I expect this winter? I expect a positive PNA and a negative EPO setup this winter. So you can see the graphic down here. Basically, what that does is when you have a negative EPO, what that does is it increases the blocking, especially in the Gulf of Alaska. And what that does is it creates cross-border flow up here. You can see cross-border flow in the United States. What this does, it pumps up the ridge, get the jet stream to dip over here, and you get a it's not zonal flow anymore. You get just a very active jet stream. What this does is it creates a buckle in the jet stream. You get the cold air to dive south into the United States. And this leads to some pretty chilly air. We had this last year, a negative EPO last year around New Year's Eve, New Year's, and you can see we got to negative degrees by that time, and it was pretty historic cold. Again, we can continue this pattern that we are in right now. We've been having negative EPO, positive PNA setup for the last couple weeks. It creates cold air, and you can see what happened in November, what happened in October. We had some record cold setting up, especially here across the central United States. And again, with this Arctic high too, if you get an Arctic high down there, down in the United States, you can get some record lows. I mean, you can get some pretty cold temperatures. So again, with the negative EPO, you want that for increased blocking, for increased cold risk. And what happens right now, what we've been experiencing is a negative EPO set of positive PNA, and again, it leads to colder risk. Next thing we want to look at is the NAO and AO. Basically, the NAO again is the North Arctic Oscillation. Basically, what this does is increase blocking. So when you have a negative NAO, a positive NAO is a very warm pattern. Positive phases kind of lead to kind of a warm pattern across most of the country. But a negative NAO, what it does is it kind of brings a ridge off into the Greenland, and what this does is kind of just blocks the cold down south because the jet stream buckles and it can't go through. So what it does, it kind of, again, you can see the blocking here. The jet stream has nowhere to go, and what this does, it makes the jet stream kind of a little bit weaker, and again, it can make this cold air just flow down into the United States. And again, a negative NAO isn't good for cold in the western United States, but it is good for cold in the central and eastern United States. And again, this favors some pretty big winter storms too. We get negative NAO. And next thing I want to look at is negative AO. Basically, this is the Arctic Oscillation, and this is basically the same thing. If we do get some blocking up in Canada and we get a negative AO, what this does, it forces the cold air south into the United States. I know you can't really see it's to the top left of the screen, but basically what's shown up here is when conditions are right, it can be a snowy pattern for the central United States as the amplified flow allows cross-border flow to dump cold air southward. And again, what I like to see here, this is a good illustration because this is kind of showing what the chances of when we have an El Nino we're having right now. That you can see the tropical jet stream, right? And what this does is it leads, what this does basically, the subtropical jet stream we are right now is active in the winter. And when you have a subtropical jet stream like we do in El Ninos, what this does is it can help create winter storms in the central plains and Midwest, because you have the southern flow coming into the United States, and it creates some big storms, especially here in the central United States into the Northeast. And with the cold air here, yeah, it's snow. Okay, it's not rain. No, it's snow. So if we do contain this negative AO in winter, we could see this pretty active and stormy pattern with some colder weather sticking around for the United States, potentially for a long period of time. We'll have to keep an eye on that. So the next thing I want to look at is a QBO. I don't have a graphic for this, but what I'm expecting this winter, basically, the QBO right now is winds like 10,000 feet up, going in the stratosphere, going around the Earth. And easterly phases support colder weather in the United States. Westerly phases do not. But what I've also seen is, and we're supposed to go westerly states. So basically, what I've seen is at least mild winters in the central United States. But since last year's the easterly phase, and we're moving on to a westerly phase, that transition period correlates to disruptions in the polar vortex, and also leads to colder weather in the central and eastern United States. So a transition period, what it does is basically leads, again, colder weather for the central United States and eastern United States, helps kind of with high latitude blocking, and also the disruption of the polar vortex. So this leads to colder temperatures, especially here in the central and eastern United States, I've been talking about for a couple of slides now. Another big thing I want to talk about, I've done a lot of research into this, is the solar minimum. We've had a grand solar minimum, by the way. We've had low to no sunspots touching the Earth for a long time. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. The last time we had was 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. Those are some big winters too. But what I do see, so solar minimums, what they do is there are correlations that they do increase high latitude blocking. But what I've seen this year is they've made the cold shots even colder. We've had snow in Oklahoma in November. I don't think that would happen if we didn't have a storm minimum right now. We've had snow in Texas. I don't think that would happen if we didn't have a storm minimum right now. We've had record snowfall in Kansas. I don't think that would happen if we didn't have a storm minimum right now. So, I mean, when you see some cold air dipping into the United States, this cold air, like usually, it can get colder because, again, there's not enough sun to kind of heat it up. Again, it's going to be cold. And it's not just going to be cold, it's going to be Arctic cold, especially with the solar minimum analogs. So, again, if we do get Arctic blasts, expect them to be colder than usual for this time of year into December, January, February. So if you thought these cold shots were cold, just wait until we get some big Arctic blasts, because they could be really cold. Not saying it's an ice age, but saying it's a pretty good bet that we could be dealing at some pretty Arctic air this winter, especially across the central and eastern United States. Next thing, we want to talk about the polar vortex. Now, this is the polar vortex is an area of cold and low pressures up in the North Pole. So what we want here for the polar vortex to get disrupted, we want Scandinavian highs, we want some blocking, we want a negative EPO, positive PNA, we want an AO, we want a negative NAO, and I've been showing you that. I think that is favored this winter. What that does, it favors a dip in the dead stream. And what happens is when the polar vortex gets disrupted, it brings cold air to the United States. It becomes weaker, and the lobe of cold air comes down to the United States. We experienced that in 2009, 2010 again. 2013 and 2014 we experienced that too, and it was cold. It was outright cold. And again, we can get this disruption. What's better is you want to have is a disruption is good. We want to have a split. If we get a split of the polar vortex, the lobe of cold air will come down to the United States. And again, as a tropical jet stream, I would think there could be potential for some big winter storms if we get that cold air in place, especially in the central and eastern United States, in an area where that tropical jet stream can create an active storm track and can create some cold weather, stormy weather, and winter storms potentially. So the next thing we'll look at is the analogs. The analogs, basically, I used years that had solar minimum. They had solar minimum, central based El Nino. They had a QBO in the westerly phase, transitioning to westerly to easterly, and these are the ones I picked up. So basically, these are 1963, 1964, 1976, 1977, 1986 and 87, 1987 and 88, 2004, 2005, and 2009, 2010. Now, if you know, 2009, 2010 was a huge winter, especially for us in the Central Plains and everyone, basically. It was just an active pattern. And do I foresee that this year? Potentially. But there is general support of a colder United States with potentially some warmer risks across the northern part of the United States. But again, these analogs, they're pretty darn chilly. If you see -3 part of the eastern United States, -3, that's some pretty cold air. And again, these analogs basically is telling me that, analogs basically use ideas from previous years to bring you into a forecast that could be, every year is the same, not every year is the same, so it's not going to be the exact replica of this, but it just gives you a general idea of, yeah, there's cold weather, and again, it's just a general idea of, well, it shows cold in these years. I think there's a higher increased risk of cold this year. So that does. We're going to go to seasonal models now. We're going to use the Jamstack, the UK Met, the Euro, and the IR multi-model ensemble probability model. And what I want to look at is seasonal models, see if they're showing any agreement. Do they agree with that analogs? When they agree with analogs, that shows, again, we use seasonal models as an idea for our winter forecast. You don't use it as a forecast because you can't use one model run on a seasonal model as a, yeah, this was going to happen this winter. You got to look at the analogs. You got to look at everything. Everything that you go into this winter forecast, you got to look at that. So the Jamstack, what it shows is a pretty darn chilly winter. And I agree with it because you saw the analog last. Look at the analogs. See, cold weather, southern United States, and most of the eastern United States. What's Jamstack though? Oh, it shows some colder weather, especially you can see the warmer risk north, colder risk south. Do I agree with this forecast? Yes, I do, because it shows a really good, it really correlates with my analogs very, really well, and you really can't deny what it's showing. Next thing, UK Met has a similar idea, has the warm air, warm and high pressure air here across Alaska, again feeding in that cold air to the eastern and central United States. Basically the same idea, warmth in the northwest, parts of the north, and cold across the southern and central United States, but it adds to the projection coming across. Next model, European, doesn't really have an area of favor below or above. It has really no signal. But I'll tell you this: when you have a really warm air in Alaska, yeah, that's just classic look. That's just a classic look for cold air in the United States. I mean, it's just common sense. You get high pressure, ridging in Alaska. It's going to feed down cold air into the United States. So when it doesn't show any, it has no signal, folks. It's pretty darn warm. I mean, it's pretty darn cold. It has no signal. It means it's below average. What I'm trying to get to. Next model here is the IR multi-model probability. Has the same basic idea. Warm from the northwest, north, cold in the central and eastern United States, and especially when this will go colder. Okay. And white, again, the white, basically what I'm saying is white is colder. It's the way it should be. Again, there's just support for a huge risk in Alaska and cold air, especially coming down to the central United States. So that's the general idea in these models and these analogs. Warmth in Alaska, cold air in the United States. That's just the general idea what I'm seeing in these models. So on to the forecast, on to the winter outlook for 2018-2019, my forecast. So what I'm seeing in December. December, I'm seeing a ridging starting to kind of develop here in the western CONUS. I do think there is potential that this ridge could get heightened up and lead to colder risks. I think this tropical jet becomes more apparent, especially as we head into early November or early December into late December. I do think we can get this polar vortex get disrupted, get this active tropical jet stream, and create a very cool look for December. Again, increased warmth in the west and increased coolness and cold in the central and eastern United States. And again, in these areas where I don't have an area marked right now, basically there's just not really a clear signal of it. They could be warm or cold. I do think the northern part, sorry guys, you're going to be warmer across here. I just didn't really add that in there, but Denver, kind of a close call. Again, areas over here, kind of a close call, but the warmth definitely going to be there in California. On to January outlook. What I did here is there are signal. I went much below average for areas here across the southern central United States. I really have an idea what this pattern looks. I don't know. January looks like a wild card. And the reason I went much below average is there's potential, like again, what happened in 2009. We got cold. And we had a polar vortex disruption. We got cold in January. I do think that happens again. And leads to some colder weather, especially here across the central and eastern United States. again, you can see the ridging starting to move more northwest. This is an increased quarter risk, and that's why I put in a much below average, because I think if we do cold, it'll be much more colder than it will be in December. I do think there's some Arctic blast in here in January. I do think there's active pattern in January too. On some February outlook, again, the ridging goes more northwest. We get a colder. We still get cold. I do think February is the big month for everyone from Kansas all the way to the East Coast. I think this is a month that malls been consistently showing a big month for February. There is a chance that it could be one again. 2009, 2010 winter had a huge February too. Had multiple winter storms for everyone from Kansas to the Northeast. So again, that's something to watch out. Again in the Northwest looks warm. There's just consistent models that are saying, analogs are saying there's warmth in the Northwest. So there's no potential for any coolness across the Northwest. Sorry for everyone who's in the Northwest. But I do see a consistent cold pattern stick around again for most of the winter. Here my precipitation outlook, really just looking at a normal El Nino kind of outlook here. This adds to tropical jet stream, trying to bring some nice and stormy weather here across the southern parts of the southern central United States and into the northeast, leading to an active tropical jet stream that just comes across and brings some big time systems here across the winter time. So this is just for fun. This is the UK Met Global C snowfall anomaly, and what I'm talking about. Look at February and January. I do think there's potential for a big month for January and February to be. I do think this is a backloaded winter for snow. I do think that December can be an active pattern too. We'll have to watch and see how that evolves. But just for entertainment purposes only, I just want to show you how active this pattern can get, and especially with the cold supply there, I do agree with the above normal potential for snowfall and wintry weather across the United States. Final slide here. This has been a nice winter forecast. Enjoyed talking about it, but this is my official winter snowfall forecast. I know everyone wants to see this, but what I'm forecasting is above average snowfall for most of the central Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, down through Texas, up through Atlanta, and up through New York, showing some potentially for a very active tropical jet stream to take place, give us a nice doses of winter action. And again, when I put it much above normal in there is because I do think there is potential for that as well. In Kansas, we've had a non-existent winter the last 4 years. We've had no winter storms. We're due. I do think it's going to happen this year. I do think we're going to get a lot of potentially big systems to develop and bring us a lot of snow, especially from Kansas through Illinois, through Indiana, and parts into Ohio, into Pennsylvania, into New York. So I do think this winter is potentially a big-time winter for the United States. A winter we haven't seen in quite a while, especially for the central United States. I think this could be a winter to remember, and it could be just a big-time year for snow and cold that we haven't